So now with the age of terrorism, they now require video cameras. That's a possibility.
Yeah. Well, actually,
Taken into account.
actually, it's a requirement.
Pardon me?
It's a requirement, not even a possibility, because you have to have your surveillance camera in your building if you are actually entertaining users.
Off campus.
Yes. So that's another requirement. So you're going to get all that area. So that's the stakeholders. Then there are an IT department or the technical folks, they want to have their own requirement. Okay? You know, they describe the features, the functions, the characteristics of a product or a service. Okay? There is the GSA division in a county government, in the federal government. They have engineers who are basically tearing you apart and say, okay, we want this and that and that and that. That's the requirements. Okay? And there is the transition requirements, means that there are temporary requirements, and there is a project requirement, actions that process or other conditions of project need to meet. There is a quality requirements. For example, in federal government, every project you deliver, it has to be a 548 compliant. Okay? 548 is a law by federal government that includes any system you build, it should include disabilities. That your software need to be able to be working for the people who can't read well. Okay, your system need to be adjusted based on that screen resolution. It's a law. Those laws, you're not going to go there. If you build a hotel or those apartments in Rockville, there is a standard law from the county that there is a setback, how far that's going to be from your building. These are the technical requirements. You have to include all of those requirements in your project. Otherwise, guess what? We had one project we almost done without knowing the 548 compliant. The contractor was from Canada, and he didn't know. But the PM should have explained to him. The system is almost gone, and by the time when we had user acceptance, we discovered this. And guess what? It cost us almost $600,000 to go back and then fix that. That's where, you remember, the quality, the price of quality is zero. So the reason why you need to define everything at its infancy stage is you know exactly what you want to deliver. Okay? Quality requirements captures any conditions or criteria needed to validate the successful completion of a project. Okay? The quality could be, you need to use a specific brand. You need to use a specific characteristics for your building size, the thickness, and everything. There is a standard that you're going to use for that. So this, when you collect requirements, could be one slide here. Like what I said, it may take you years to get that, and especially in a project where everybody, like the majority of the users are using it, you better spend your time gathering your requirements. Okay, so now we collect the requirements. Then the next one is what? Now you define your scope. Okay, you have your requirements, and you define your scope. So means that it's the process of developing a detailed description of the project and then product. It should be detailed enough to the extent where you can literally identify the smallest job, which we're going to discuss that on that. Okay, so it describes the product, the service, or a result boundaries by defining which of the requirements collected will be included in and then excluded from the project scope. You remember, I keep on saying included and then excluded because scope is about in and out, what is in and what's out. Okay, it's also important to the project as it builds upon the major deliverables. So major deliverables means the priorities. Remember, out of those, we have this 120, and these are the major deliverables that your project should have in the first go. Because remember, especially in software, you keep on building on the previous version, so you will have an option to be more flexible. So scope defined is what? It's an iterative process. So iterative process means that, you see, Fitzum said something about the methodology. The old project management strategy says that before you start developing your project, you need to have 100% of your requirement in. Is that feasible? No. Okay? That means that you are like, a ridge that you have to finish your requirement before you start writing your first code. That's not going to work. That's why the industry started embracing the agile development, say that, if you get 50%, start. Then as you move on, you're going to adjust. That's what is called iterative. You see, ours was,
Got a question here. When you're planning or so determine the scope of the project, say, so we can have flexibility.
yes,
That's
yes.
what it is.
Yeah.
But flexibility, wouldn't you think that that might cause some changes at the background because the project is going on, and if you come up made a change of some of the scope or the element of the scope or what we're calling it. The requirements. What does that cause some error on the previous parts of the project that's already been?
Yes, it's a good question. Remember, we are not going to change those major requirements. Otherwise, what will happen is that you're going to come back to that drawing board again and again and again. And in project management, we call it a war room. You sit that, it's like a war. And in the war room, you sit down and then you kind of hash it and then you break it down and then you get what you need. These are like a high level. You see here, it's major deliverables. Okay? You're not going to compromise with that because these are the building block of your system. Okay? Unless a management decision comes and say, change it, then whatever you are negotiating is what needs to be included, what is not to be included. So you are right. In a way, you may not get 100% of your requirement in before you design or before you start working, but a good chunk of your requirement should be there for you to start your project. Okay? Remember, the reason why I said is iteration is, you remember what we discussed last time? A change control or a configuration control board. Because when you do in your project, you're going to have a committee called CCB. Okay? Change control board. Or sometimes they call it configuration control board. In a typical project, you may probably have what we call it the project executive team that will have an oversee on your project. Okay, so what Work was saying that if there is a change, for example, if Daniel forgot something to include at the beginning and he told us to add in the project, then we have to go back and then review and come up with a concept, say, okay, we can change what you said, we can add a swimming pool on the fifth floor, but this will cost us additional $200,000. It will cost us additional 3 months of our time, and it will also cost us some sort of quality control because you know, the water, the swimming pool is upstairs, so we have to change our design in such a way that everything be used in a sealing material, in a material that's waterproof. Okay, so that's why you haven't seen any project completed with the original requirement 100%. Then that's not a project. So the role is that you minimize that change, but you're not completely, you know, leave that structure. Otherwise, what will happen is that you'll go back again and again and again in the drawing. So you're right. You know, it's a concept. It's a good idea, and the beauty of that construction is that you are certain that almost 95% of the scope is predefined. But in a software, in an IT world, in an infrastructure world, you don't know. Even way back to the 80% of your project, you don't know. That's why you see that continuous monitoring chart was stretching from the beginning to the end, because you have to make sure that in every stage of your system you have a checkpoint. And that's why it's iterative. Means that you go back and then review.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And also, I think discovery continues even after you define the scope. So let me give you a quick example. 5 years ago, we decided to do the White Oak redevelopment plan. So the county puts together, we look at areas in the county where it needs to be redeveloped. So Silver Spring, 25 years ago, was one of the places that was set to be redeveloped. And now we see what Silver Spring is. So 5 years ago, about 6 years ago, the county decided to say, hey, White Oak is another area that we can redevelop. We hired a business management consultant at that time, and there were a couple of properties that we wanted to integrate.